So now that we have permanent towns and communities here in Utah, not everything is going to go perfect. We've got people from the East Coast, these new English type settlers who are coming and making these permanent communities, permanent homes, going all over. We learned why they settled where they settled, how they set up their towns, all of those things. But there's people who lived here before. There's 5 current, still here groups of Native Americans. So there's going to be some conflicts. Not all of them have to do with Native Americans either. That's just the first one that we're going to talk about. So we're going to talk about 3 different conflicts. There are a lot more than 3 conflicts. I picked these 3 because they all affect us differently. They all do different things, but just to kind of give you an example. The first one is called the Walker War. This is one that we have a war, I guess you could call it, disagreements, continual fighting with Native Americans. We need to go back a little bit and we need to figure out what's going on. So the Utes were very, very welcoming. We're talking about the Salt Lake City people and the Ute tribe. The Utes were very happy and have been very accommodating to people that have moved in and made permanent establishments. That is not the way that the Utes work, or any of the Native American tribes. They may have more permanent like housing, some of them, like Wickiups, I guess you could consider them semi-permanent. But they don't build roads, they don't have town stores or anything like that. So when these guys come in and they start putting up fences and they start having domesticated animals like cows and sheep that need all of this land, that's completely different. So we've got these Utes who are trying to protect their lands and their food supply, because as soon as these Mormons come in and they start building permanent towns, is there going to be the same kind of wildlife that come down and graze in the valley as there was before? No, because when at all possible, all of these wild animals don't like to come around people. In fact, the only time we really see deer is when it's too cold in the mountains for them to find food, so then they come down and we see them. But usually they stay up in the hills away from us. That is completely affecting how these Utes hunt, how they find their food, where they consider their land, because where they don't have it marked off, fenced off, somewhere that might be sacred to them, might now be Tom's house and Tom's farm, or I don't know, someone else's town or someone else's home that they've now claimed for themselves. So they're feeling very suffocated almost. Stuff's being taken from them consistently, and it's starting to really affect them. So what they do is they try and drive the settlers away. They try and get rid of them. They want them to see that this is not a good place for them to live. This is not a good place for them to do it. But, and this is why we started talking about Mormons clear back from when they were first started with Joseph Smith in New York. They've been driven out of a lot of places, and they feel like they've gone as far away from any other civilization as they possibly could. So they really dig in their heels and they're like, no, we are not going. This is where we live now. We got to figure this out. We're going to protect our homes and you're not going to make us leave. And they get really, really invested in that. So tensions continue to build, especially as more and more pioneers continue to come out. So they are not just one group that come out and stay the same size that they can work this out with. As more pioneers come out, they're going to take up more land. More people are going to build houses. It's going to make their cities bigger. They're going to expand more. They're going to take more of this Utes territory, and it's going to become a bigger and a bigger issue. Things can't continue forever to just be really tense. Something's going to happen that's going to break it. What we have is a couple of natives and a couple of settlers, and they're in a place called Springville. Springville is down south of Provo by Spanish Fork and Mapleton. If you're familiar with that at all, there's a little town called Springville. So in Springville, there's a disagreement between a settler and a Ute that just goes bad. And that's just crazy about this particular incident, is they weren't making this huge big trade. It wasn't like they were trading a month's worth of food for a winter's worth of clothing. It was over 3 fish and a cup of flour. So because of this disagreement, over 3 fish and a cup of flour, there was a Ute native who was killed. This does not go over well. So how they kind of worked at the time, how the Utes worked at the time, is that if they had something done wrong to them, if they were wronged, then they wanted the person who wronged them turned over to them, and then they would give them the punishment, usually death. Usually that person died, depending on the crime. So in this case, the settler who killed this native would have been handed over to the Ute tribe, who then would have handed out the punishment. That's not what they wanted to do. They're like, no, I don't think so. You cannot take me and kill me. Who's to say what happened? So there was a lot of he said, she said. No one else was there. So if you are a settler and all of a sudden this native died, what's your story going to be? Well, I was attacked. He attacked me. I was just defending myself. And if you were the other native who was there, what's the story going to be? Oh, they attacked us and he killed them and I barely got away with my life. Do we actually know what happened there? No, we don't. A lot of he said, she said. Well, when the Mormons refused to hand over this guy for whatever punishment the Utes saw fit, which would probably be death, they were very eye for an eye at that point, then the Utes went and killed a white man at Fort Payson. So they're like, well, you're going to kill one of us. We're going to kill one of you. So that's just kind of how things started. There was a ton of back and forth. So then the Mormons were like, hey, you killed one of us. We were unprovoked. That's it. We're going to kill you. And they're like, oh, you killed one of us. Well, guess what we're going to do? We're going to kill one of you. And yes, this is a simplified version. There's a lot of stuff that went into this. But that's essentially what happened, okay? You kill us, we're going to kill you. Well, you killed us, so we're going to kill you. Well, you killed us, so we're going to kill you. You see how that gets real messy? Is there ever going to be an end to that? No, not really. So 10 months went by of this back and forth killing. It was insane. The settlers started to be really fearful if their house were on the edge of town because they were the most likely ones to get raided and killed. So they started building protective forts and living inside of walls. It was really bad. Brigham Young is like, hey, this has got to be done. This is insane. We need to be finished. There's too many people dying and we need to be done with that. Well, wanting it to be done and actually getting it done is two different things. So what happened is Brigham Young is like, hey, Wakara. So Wakara is the guy on the left. He is the Ute chief. It's called the Walker War because the settlers called him Walker, Chief Walker. But his name is Wakara. So Wakara and Walker, same person. He's the chief. So Brigham Young is like, you know what? This has got to be done. If it's going to get done, it needs to be between me and Wakara to settle this. If it's not between me and Wakara, then both sides are not going to respect this. So it has to be us. So he went to the Ute village and he's like, hey, I need to settle this with you. So he went there and he kind of made the first move. Good for him. So he went up there and Wakara is like, I'm not leaving my tent. I'm not going to talk to you. And Brigham Young was like, what do you mean? Came up here to talk. You were willing to talk. Why aren't you talking to me? And Wakara's like, nope, not leaving my tent. Go away. So it was this really weird situation. And Brigham Young's like, what is going on? Well, come to find out, well, he didn't just find out. He went in. Brigham Young went in. He kind of barged in, and he found Wakara on the bedside of his sick daughter. She's on the edge of death. As she's on the edge of death, he obviously doesn't want to come and worry about something else. So fair enough. Brigham Young is like, would you mind if I give her this blessing of healing from my religion? I will give you this blessing. It will help her feel better, and I'll help you with that. And Wakara's like, yeah, anything to help her at this point. I've done everything that I could. Well, miraculously, she survived. So that really eased the tensions between the two. And again, remember how when we're talking about religion in a secular setting, secular means educational setting. So in a school setting like this, we don't say things like, I know it was this blessing that saved her, okay? Because no, that's not how it works in this educational setting. Brigham Young gave her a blessing. She happened to recover. No one knows if that had anything to do with it, so we're not going to put any sort of additional value. But what it did do is it did ease tensions between the two. And the two were able to talk because Brigham Young reached out and came in and helped. And Wakara's daughter is alive, so he's happy. So they're both just in a really good spot in order to make this better, in order to make these decisions that will hopefully put the two groups at peace and quit doing this unnecessary killing. And that's what happened. Tensions were eased. They stopped from the chief down to his people and from Brigham Young down to his people. This fighting is done as of now. And it was done. They were able to move past it. And before this, I should mention that there was a lot of good relations between them. We talked about that before, how the mountain men and how Dominguez and Escalante set up relationships with the natives, so that was really good for the settlers when they got there. So that was there as well. So now they have this good relationship again. Yes, there are definitely other skirmishes, other wars, other fights between the settlers who now live in Utah and between the different Native American groups. This is just one example of one with the Utes, and we call it the Walker War.